Welcome to the March meeting of Commission on Aging. I'm pleased to have as our guest today Jim Cameron from TV 79. He's going to give us a nice presentation on all that goes down on our local TV. And before we get to him though, our first order of agenda is our discussion of our February minutes. Do we have any changes to the February minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the February minutes? Thank you. Second, appreciate it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks so much. And without further ado, Jim, you're up.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you. I have some handouts if you could take one of those and pass them down. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am one of your faithful viewers. I watch your meetings. I think that the work that you do and all of you around the table who interface with seniors in this town, and I'm in the demographic for sure, do a tremendous service. This is such a welcoming town with so many offerings for seniors. And we try to capture that on TV 79. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about TV 79, its background, what it is that we do, what we don't do, and I was hoping to give you a demonstration on the screen here of our website, but you can troll around and find it on your own as well too. My background is I moved to Darien about 31 years ago with my wife, and our daughter went through the school system. I've been on the RTM for over 25 years now, I think. I'm the chairman of the Board of Ethics as well too. But David Deaver got me involved with this whole idea of having a town TV station because he had laid the groundwork. And TV 79 was kind of officially born in 2007. We've been doing all town meetings, community events ever since. We have an advisory board that keeps arm's distance between the Board of Selectmen and the operation of TV 79. So I operate independently. I answer to the advisory board, not to the first selectman, but I get along with them fairly well as well. We are funded with money from cable subscribers in town, and also we get some money from the town ourselves to pay for our fine videography staff. Pierre Simon is sitting over there at the controls. We have about 6 or 7 videographers. Most of them are students from Norwalk Community College. That's how Pierre came to us as well too. So they're involved with learning video, and this is like hands-on, opportunity to do some interesting stuff. Some of the things that we cover obviously involve all the town meetings, the boards, the commissions, all the RTM commissions. But as I said, we also cover community events. So if Parks and Rec is doing something at the beach, or Peter just turned me on to a video conversation that he had with Senator Bob Duff. Anything that affects Darien is our focus because we are only viewable in Darien. The handout I gave you, which is how to watch TV 79, explains, if you don't know already, you must be watching this somehow. I don't know how you're watching it if you're not in the room as well too. But we broadcast on Optimum Cable. We also have a feed that goes to YouTube if you have cut the cord, so you can watch us not just in Darien, but anywhere in the world. We have a lot of viewers, snowbirds, who continue to watch town government in action from their summer domicile, their winter domicile, some point south in warmer climes. We also preserve all the meetings that we record on our website so that you can go back if you missed a particular meeting and watch it on your computer or your iPhone or your iPad, and you can stop it and start it and jump around in the meeting and find a part of that conversation that you're most interested in. So on demand is probably where we get most of our viewers. They don't have the patience perhaps to sit through a 2.5 hour long planning and zoning commission meeting, but they heard there was a discussion about auxiliary dwelling units, ADUs, and they want to see that. So there was a fascinating public hearing on that last week that we covered as well too. We're actively involved with all social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We promote what's going to be coming up. But the biggest thing that I think that is useful to our audience is the weekly program guide that I put out. You have a copy of that in front of you. It's sent out by email. You can sign up for it on the website, or give me a call, contact me. And this lists all the meetings that we have covered in the last week. And the blue links that you see there that say agenda or video, if you click on them, it'll take you straight to the agenda for that particular meeting or the video of that meeting. So if you see something on that list that looks interesting, oh, I see the Advisory Board of Health, what are they up to? It's an hour long, I'll just click on the agenda, I'll see the part of that meeting that I'm interested in watching. And then the other thing we list is what's coming up next week that we plan to cover. And I think a lot of people look at this list because it's heavily curated, as you would say. I make sure that everything that's on that list is accurate, sometimes more accurate than even the town website itself, but it lists all the meetings that are coming up next week. So if you're interested in seeing what's going on with the Great Island Advisory Committee, it's there. You can click on it and maybe attend that meeting or watch it live on your TV. So we have about 1,200 subscribers to this email list, and we get about a 50 to 60% open rate, which is extraordinarily high for some sort of a mass mailing. We also, I want your feedback. I mean, I wish I got more letters or phone calls from people. I liked this, I didn't like that, or why don't you cover this, or have you thought of doing something like that? I welcome input, so those of you that are in the room and watching at home, by all means, if you see something you like or you don't like, please let us know, because that's my goal. I got involved with all of this because I am an immigrant. I came to this country as a teenager from Canada. I am a naturalized citizen, and boy, do I believe in American democracy. This country has been very, very good to me, but I absolutely believe in participatory democracy. And this is a small town, staffed with volunteers on all these boards and commissions, and I think you have the right and civic responsibility to stay engaged with what's going on in town. Not to wait for something to show up 2 weeks later in the Darien Times, what's left of the Darien Times, but to involve yourself. So the best story I tell is early on, I was sitting in the booth covering a Board of Selectmen meeting in room 206, and our control room is in the old projection booth of the auditorium. So next time you're up there, there's a meeting going on, pop your head in there, you can see the magic happen. I was sitting in there shooting a Board of Selectmen meeting, and some guy popped his head and he said, is this TV 79? I said, yes sir it is. He said, I was watching at home and I got so darn mad I wanted to come down here and have my say. So he walked into the room and offered some public comment on something. I think the more people are involved with town government, the happier they are with what the town is doing to them with the tax money. And so anything that we can do to encourage people to participate in that is our goal. We cover sometimes 15 different meetings a week. That's a lot of running around. That's 2 or 3 meetings simultaneously on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And we go up to the Housing Authority and we cover their meetings, wherever it is they're meeting, or the police headquarters as well too. Board of Education, the largest piece of the Darien town budget every year, covers their own meetings. And they do a really good job. You can actually participate in those virtually, or you can watch them after the fact. But we also put those on TV 79. They tend to run long, sometimes 2 or 3 hours a piece. But if you really want to know where your tax dollars are going, watch what the Board of Education is up to. So that's the TV 79 story in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
So my question would be, how have you seen TV 79, if at all, change as a result of local journalism kind of going away? When we lost Susan Schultz at the in the Darien paper, that was a massive change because we went from really localized coverage and her going in depth in some cases to basically a much more regional newspaper where I sometimes see stuff in the Stamford Advocate before I see it in the Darien paper.
So when we came to town, there were 2 weekly newspapers. There was the News Review and there was the Darien Times. Hearst acquired the News Review and all the other Hearst and Acorn weekly papers. I used to, full disclosure, I used to write for the Hearst papers. I write a weekly column on transportation. And I used to run the Stamford Advocate and the Norwalk Hour and the Darien Times. They've really killed the Darien Times. It doesn't have its own editor anymore. It's really a homogenization of stories from the Advocate and the Norwalk Hour. And by the time it, comes out and you see it, delivered to your doorstep on Thursdays, those stories are a week or two old. So what's left? You got the Darionite that David Gerliacci does. There's the Patch. There's the Daily Voice. There's a few other websites that try to cover things. But guess what they do? How do they get their news? They watch TV 79. I know that their reporters are sitting at home watching our coverage and writing stories about that. And they do a nice job, I think, of summarizing the action. But I think TV 79's importance has increased, as Joe implied, by the lack of other local journalism in this town. If you really want to know what's going on, you got to drink from the fire hose of TV 79, because you're not going to get the individually bottled version of what the Board of Selectmen was up to quite as accurately.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Peter?
What about quantification? Could you tell us, for example, how many people watch the Commission on Aging meeting? Is it 3? Is it 3? Is it my wife and 2 other friends?
So what's our audience? I can't tell how many people are watching live. I can tell how many people have watched the recording of any particular meeting. I can look that up and tell you. I think on average, a Commission on Aging meeting might get a couple dozen views. Some meetings get more if there's word in town that there was something that went down at the Board of Finance. People are suddenly, let's go find that one. Our new first selectman, John Zagrodzky, has started his term by doing small informational videos. He did one on revaluation.
They're terrific.
And he did another one on pickleball. And he's done the most recent one is on how to get access to Great Island as a pedestrian. Those things have 550, 600 views. So people have heard about that. They're nice bite-sized summaries of local information. I don't think I'm speaking out of school because he told me this. The next one he's going to be doing is going to be on affordable housing. And not necessarily, the nice thing about JZ, John Zagrodzky, our first selectman, I think he does a really objective job of explaining, not necessarily politicizing a particular issue. So he's going to walk around town and say, here's the Heights, or here's Royal, or here are these other affordable housing places in Darien. And Darien Commons is going to have some affordable housing units as well too. So to answer your question, sometimes it's a guesstimate. I can tell how many people on a live evening shoot are watching us on YouTube or watching us on our website. We also feed video to Twitter. If you're a Twitter person, you can watch a meeting on Twitter live as well if you want to. But the best metric I get is the open rate on our program guide. I know that there's like 650 people a week that are opening and looking at that program guide, which says to me that they know TV 79 is there and they're trying to stay engaged in the town. Now that's 650 people out of 21,000 people that live in town, but I don't expect everybody to be glued to their TV set. We're like the C-SPAN of local town. There's a lot of stuff there, and you got to wade through it and find out the part that you're interested in. In addition to covering the town meetings, we also run what I call public affairs programming. So the speakers of the Darien Men's Association, the speakers at the Greenwich Men's Association, Westport Museum puts out really good videos. I get some stuff from the National Gallery of Art and put those shows on as well too. So we're on 24 hours a day. I mean, I was at a senior session once. There was a licensed practical nurse that came in. They were answering questions about medications and how do I take care of myself. And a member of the audience said, "Is it okay for me to take these over-the-counter sleep aids?" And she said, "No, you shouldn't take those because your metabolism is slower and you're going to wake up in the morning and it's not going to be cleared from your system." She said, "Well, I have trouble getting to sleep." And I said, "But just turn on TV 7. It'll put you to sleep. 3 o'clock in the morning, watching one of these meetings, next thing you know, it's the next morning." Any other questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for putting the timestamps, I think that's what you call it, right? Of what time, like, each segment is on. Because like you said, some of these meetings are so long, and if there's something in particular, that's been so helpful, just to cut to the chase.
Well, we're trying to do
Thank you.
more of that. I think I've got a solution to make that happen, because it's hard if you're conducting a meeting to make note on your own agenda that discussion item number 1 started at 5 minutes into the meeting, and then the discussion about such and such started at 20 minutes into the meeting. But Board of Finance, Planning and Zoning, they do an excellent job. They give those to me as well too. But we're gonna start doing that with all the meetings so that you can look at that timestamp and say, I wanna go right to that part of the meeting and watch that particular discussion. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jim, is there any content that you haven't had on TV 79 yet that you'd like to?
No, there is some content that we are, by our operating guidelines, not allowed to cover. We don't cover political events. So if it's the Democratic Town Committee or the Republican Town Committee, we don't cover those. We don't cover anything involving commercial businesses in town. So we can't be promoting Whole Foods if they're doing something interesting. We do talk to the Chamber of Commerce. And, you know, we highlight developments that are going on in town, the Darien Commons. We produced a short video on that, just introducing that before it necessarily opened. But I'm so lucky, you know, I have pretty much free reign, and enough, if I've got the budget, I can cover it. So we've covered some wacky things over the years. Didn't get a huge audience, but I know that a lot of your constituents are our viewers, and I know they're at home. They may not be able to get out and attend some of these events. For example, the winter fair that you held up at Tilly Pond.
Oh, no, that's Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, sorry. The winter fair up at, that Pam did. Goodbye, Pam, we miss you. There was a wonderful event on a Sunday afternoon with hot chocolate and little lanterns set free to float around on Tilly Pond. There were over 1,000 people there. A lot of families. I think, you know, those kind of town-wide events, we don't have as many as we used to. Remember the fireworks we used to have at the old high school, and the town band would play? There's some events at the beach as well too. But I wanted to capture those for people that couldn't attend, that can't get out, it's too cold, whatever the reason is. So you can watch it, and you can sort of still feel part of what makes this town so great, and that is that it's small, but it can come together and involve families and old people and really celebrate the, you know, life in this town.
Have you ever thought of going back in time, right? Pulling videos from Darien in the 1950s, 1940s, 1930s, the historical part of that, which I think would be fascinating to our seniors. That is, if there are, I mean, there are such videos out there, people are producing them, especially one of my favorite kinds is they take the ancient 1910s, 1900s
Right.
films and speed them up and colorize them. And it brings them to life. I know it sounds crazy, but it's amazing
No, it's not
to see
crazy at all.
these kind of slow things, which you always say, these
Yeah.
people are ancient, why am I watching this? And when they turn it into color and speed it up, all of a sudden they're real people living in 1898.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to watch because you're saying, they're not that different than us. Yeah, everything around them is different, but this person is shopping today, okay?
Right.
No different than somebody at, you know, I would almost say Grand Union, that shows my age. But at the end of the day, that, you know, that I think that, you know, if you have access to such things, it would be very, very cool for TV 79 to have ancient Darien stuff.
Well, we have no budget for colorization. But if there's anybody watching here who has old videos at home of Darien in the 40s, or, well, maybe not the 40s, there was no video in those days, video recording, but the 50s or the 60s, let me know. I would love to get hold of those, make a copy of them. Yes, I would love to celebrate the town. I mean, I love watching it, looking at those old pictures of, you know, the trolleys running down Tokenique Road as well too. Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to get that. So get in touch with me and we'll put that stuff on the air.
Very cool.
Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned budget a couple of times, so I'm
Yeah.
just curious, what's your annual budget? Does it come just from the town? How much is from volunteers and or other sources?
So I mentioned that we get a grant every year from what's called the Area 9 Cable Council, on which I serve. I'm vice chairman of that. And that's all the towns in Lower Fairfield County. If you subscribe to cable TV, either Frontier or Cablevision, Optimum, you're paying $5 a year, as the federal government requires, everybody in the country does this, to go into a pot of money that covers public access, educational access, and government access. That's us, we're a government access channel. So we get about $8,000 a year from that fund, which we use to pay for capital equipment, new lights, cameras, switchers, things like that. Some of that money also helps pay for our videographers. And the town gives us about $23,000 a year to pay for videographers. I run a very tight, lean operation. We don't waste a lot of money. We've never had to go back to the town asking for more money, even in times where, you know, like the Great Island purchase. You know, when the Great Island purchase was announced, the RTM had to hold, I believe it was something like 24 meetings in 2 weeks. And that really kind of blew through our budget for the rest of the year, but we don't need more money. I think we've got enough money. As I say, I run a very tight operation. I pinch pennies, just like every other department in this town does. We don't waste any money. But I think our biggest challenge is personnel, because talent like this, Pierre Simon, who's been over here shooting this meeting, and others, most of these students from NCC, they come through, they last a couple of years, and then boom, they're off someplace else, and I got to start from scratch. So we need more talent, not necessarily more money at this point.
Other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Jim, so much.
You're very
Fascinating
welcome.
presentation.
Thank you.
And you are welcome to stick around.
We're gonna watch. We're gonna watch.
Okay, very, very cool. Stay around live. That's awesome. Rather than watching it on Vimeo. Awesome. And so next item on our agenda, Beth with our Mather Center report.
We have a very busy April coming up, but I just wanted to mention that we did culminate out of the focus group that we had in February. There is a survey that's online. There's some here if you wanted to take a look at them, because there's folks that aren't doing them online as well. They're doing them, and we're inputting the information. So out of that, over 20, I think we're close to 30 people came. This survey is a culmination of all the ideas that were put forth to us. So we kind of made a little bit of a little better template, because it was a lot of ideas. So we want people to just tell us, there's some demographic information in terms of age, but the rest of it is pretty much what came up from that group, which was a lot of great suggestions. And this one's just related to activities. We're gonna have another one on May 9th. That one's going to be broken down for services that they'd like to see at the center that we don't currently do. And also, another piece of it is going to be promoting, how we can better promote what happens in the center. One piece we found is that the caregiver work that gets done in the center on the regular, we have about, I think right now, 24 people that are coming to caregiver support or calling in the mornings and stuff for people especially that have cognitive issues. And they are saying that more people need to know that there is that offering, and also they love the monthly support group, so they come when they can. And they love knowing where other support groups are and how to get online and Zoom. So there's a lot of good information that's coming from that. There's a lot of new services that are out there. There's also a lot of promotional stuff that's going on now through the state, the Department on Unit on Aging, relating to having people in the community that have cognitive issues, and how to be welcoming to them, and how to have more events that both the person that's the caregiver and the care receiver can attend as well. So we want to message that a little bit more. We are busier than ever, I think, based on the fact that we're offering more than we ever did before. We're averaging at least 24 different special events every single month at this point. We are working actually thanks to Jim, who came in and helped Caitlin and I look at doing more things virtual or live streaming. So we're working with the Darien Foundation at this point to help us with maybe some equipment that we can have so that we can do more live streaming of information, of some of the programs that we have as well for folks that can't get out. The health and wellness programs, especially the education and academic programs, a lot of folks are wanting to come to certain events and they just can't come on the days that we're doing them. We're also working with other health agencies to do more health screening. So we're gonna, next month, we have the Pulse coming in to do circulatory appointments. Basically, this stuff is done through with the actual technical staff coming in, mostly run by nurses. And so you get a health screen that you can, free of charge, that you can bring to your doctor. You might, come up with something that you didn't know was going on, that they can give you advice for. We're gonna do another one in May. So we've got a lot of good synergies. We're working with HSS to do more presentations for us as well. Everyone who comes to an HSS presentation is completely impressed with between their doctors, their physical therapists, and their occupational therapists. Lots of stuff about replacements of joints, that kind of thing. So, as our mission is to keep the mind, the body, and the spirit stimulated, we're trying to make sure that all of our scheduling of all of our programs, we're sprinkling that all in. We're start kicking April off with, because it is National Humor Month again, with our open mic, which actually are people that are members that come up and do a little stand-up on April Fool's Day. But in between, there's a lot of other things that are happening. On April 10th, I want to make mention that our wonderful Joe Pankowski will be there to tell people about what the Commission on Aging is. Because a lot of folks don't really know what advocacy that you do really garner a lot of work in town in terms of every senior, every issue. And then Tony Omecki will be there, because taxes are always a hot topic, and he's going to present as well. So they're going to tag team together on April 10th at 10 o'clock. I do want to say before I close that on Thursday, the seniors had asked to say goodbye to our chief, Anderson. So there is a coffee in that's from 10 to 11:30. That's just a drop-in. He tends to be a very humble guy, so he didn't want anything formal, but many seniors came forward that said that they wanted to at least have a moment to thank him. So from 10 to 11:30, please stop by to see Don and thank him for his over 40 years of service and complete. So there's these, this is out, the April newsletter is out. There's so much in it, I'd take the rest of the meeting if I talked about everything that's in it. It's absolutely fabulous. Caitlin is doing an amazing, amazing job with finding opportunities for the center. So please, it's online, it's in center, pick up a copy, you won't want to miss anything. I did tell Jim we are losing Elizabeth Hall, who is, thank goodness, she's still a Darien resident. She's wanting to enjoy her retirement, but she's taught 4 classes consistently, probably for the last now 10 years at the center. And so it's taking us, so far we found 3 different instructors who are well qualified. Their information is in this, but we're having a little farewell for Elizabeth on April 26th. We're having a luncheon, but she will be back to either sub or teach other short-term classes. The demands of her family, they want her around and they want to travel with her, so we're going to be very happy to do that as well. So she's got a lot of people that participate in her classes. So.
I'm in her class.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, she's amazing. So we've been very blessed to have her for that all that time. So yeah.
Questions for Beth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any way that we can get Jim? Can you record that meeting when Joe comes in on
Yeah.
aging?
I can do that. Wednesday, the
April
10th.
10th at
I'll
10.
make that happen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The other question I have is, if the speed bump is coming back, is it gonna be cut so that handicapped people can not fall over it?
Yes, it's gonna be cut at least the width of, I'm gonna bring actually a wheelchair out there, the widest one I have, and we'll cut it on both ends.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've been working with the folks in that, and
yeah.
I've been sufficiently annoying, I think.
You've been polite.
I've been polite but
Polite.
annoying, and that's what I am.
Yeah.
I'm polite but
Yeah.
annoying. Ask
Yeah.
my wife.
We won't take them on that, Joe. But yeah, unfortunately, it is a necessary evil when all the, all the camps start again. And it is hard for you to believe, we cross a lot of people on a daily basis to walk them to their cars, even now, because now, it's cold out, but people are slipping through. And there's a lot of folks that even, you have to do a U-turn to pick up people right in front of us. At Home has to do it all the time. So if one of us aren't out there when it's busy, people are in jeopardy when they cross. So we can't have a crosswalk because we don't corner to corner. But it does help when the weather, especially when there's lots of little kids out there too. So
Cool.
it'll be back,
Awesome.
even the other one.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Ally, what's going on with Human Services?
Okay, good morning. Just a reminder from the assessor's office that the tax relief programs are continuing until May 15th. So those are things that you have to apply for every year. And it's obviously on the assessor's website and it's in my newsletter. Paula Sutliff, the public health nurse, and I are going to be offering another mental health first aid training on May 15th and 16th. We haven't put it out there yet, but we will be soon, at Post 53 from 8:30 to 1 every day. And again, this is for lay people. It's similar to like CPR, but it's for mental health issues, just to give you some education, some skills to help people who might be in a crisis. So it's open to any Darien resident or anyone who serves Darien, so local organizations and all. And we welcome people, and I have to say, unless people are just saying this, everyone who's participated has found it very helpful and useful. So, and it's free because we're using town ARPA funds. So you can just email me directly, and we have up to 30 people, first come, first serve. So please take advantage of it. We do have a new protective services for the elderly case. And unfortunately, the state, apparently, the protective service for the elderly is inundated with calls to the point, and they're no longer allowed to work overtime. So to the point where I made a referral tomorrow, it'll be 2 weeks ago. And it still hasn't reached the Stamford office, which is our catchment area, and I've been speaking to the supervisor there, and she just actually told me this morning that the supervisor from the 800 number in the state will be calling me today. Thankfully, this resident who has dementia, she does have very supportive, involved family, but she's very challenging and difficult and not cooperating with all the recommendations that we've all been trying to help her with over the last year. So, but this woman's, she's been putting herself in a very, very precarious situations and very vulnerable. So that's concerning, and I did ask if there's any place that I don't know if I have to, email the commissioner of DSS or what, but it's a problem. So thankfully, this woman does have supports, because oftentimes most of our cases with protective services don't have that support. So anyway, those again, we're hoping to start the conservator process. The family wanted to do this last year, but the woman won't cooperate. So those are time consuming, but hopefully we get that ball rolling soon. Other than that, energy assistance, I think I had mentioned last time, maybe even the month before, that there was some additional funding from the state, particularly for people who heat with oil homes, or heat their homes with oil. And they can get another one-time grant of $410, which isn't tremendous, but hopefully it'll cover maybe like 100 gallons. And all the people that were eligible for that, like who were have oil heated homes, did get a letter from the state so that they're notified of that. So they do have like another week or so, I think it is, to apply for that. All they have to do is reach out to the agency that approved them. It's not through us, but we can certainly help them. And then people with utility heated homes still have towards the end of May to apply. So that's still going, and then it'll start up again in September. And that's about all I have.
Any questions for Ally? Thank you so much. Chris, what's happening at Home in Darien?
A few things. First to start, several months ago, I was very fortunate to represent At Home in Darien and be interviewed by Mr. Cameron. And I truly call it one of the highlights of my nearly 2 years now in getting that opportunity. And beyond the voice, that is just so amazing. The questions you had, the preparation, there were things that I would have forgotten to talk about that he teed up for me. So I really appreciate that. We've got that posted on our site. I think that may have been, I think you said it was the highest rated, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, you know, first selectman was good,
Yeah,
but you.
yeah. Well, if he dives into it, most of those clicks were me and my family. So that doesn't count. We have just nearly completed what we call an office refresh, which has been important to just, for us and some of our members. Working on a very tight budget that, we didn't want to spend a lot of money for it. So we've taken what I think was kind of like a taxi bullpen before to a real office that is great for the staff and anybody coming in. And I really want to thank some members of the town, the Public Works, Dave, Armando, and Johnny, who came in and did some help on our behalf. Really great to see the town. Well, I mean, admittedly, we are not part of the town, although we are part of the town and work so closely with Beth and Ally and their teams. So that was really great to see. It was fun. We have a member whose 100th birthday is coming up, so we are going to celebrate that, and just working with the son and daughter to figure out how to celebrate that. Who has been a fabric. The woman went to the senior center for many years. Now we have a volunteer who became a board member who brings her to CVS. So again, it's another one of those examples of somebody who's been in the town for so many years, touched so many people, and we're going to have the opportunity, and hopefully the town will participate in that. In terms of the organization, we just had, I think last time I mentioned, we're going to try to have more kind of micro events to get seniors together and to attack isolation and loneliness. We had one last week at Compass Real Estate, which was a byproduct of Compass giving us a donation last year and saying, this is great, but we want to do more, can we volunteer? So we sat down and they said, let's do some events at our office. So we had one of those events, it was bingo, a very heated bingo event, I think, I backed off, but that was really fun. We had like 23 people, and we're gonna do probably a quarterly event with them, and we're talking to other venues, people to try to do more of that. And last, there are certain milestones that we can celebrate in life. 16 years old, you get a driver's license. 21, you get to do other things. But when you turn 60 in town, and you know where I'm going, when you turn 60 in town, you are automatically a member of At Home in Darien. So, I know you probably already received it.
I've got it,
Okay.
I've got it in my phone. I got a second one?
This is for TV 79.
Okay, that's great.
The presentation
Perfect, thank you so
of-
much.
of Joe's
Really appreciate it.
welcoming to
Thank
At Home
you
in
so
Darien.
much. Woohoo!
And all rights and privileges.
Thank you very much. Very nice, thank you so much. I now have two, which is awesome.
I have to lose one.
And I'm so looking forward to taking advantage of some of the things, especially the discounts with construction folks. It's not so much the discount as it is these people have been vetted, right? In other words, how hard is it to know what electrician to get? Things of that nature. So I think I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you. I appreciate the extra card. It's really, really cool. And it was very cool also to get that in the mail.
Well,
though.
that's good. Yeah, you
Yeah,
got the mail. Yeah.
It's very great. Thank you. Great. Questions for Chris?
I don't have a question, I have a comment based on exactly that conversation. I'm also on the board of At Home in Darien with Chris. One of the things that's starting to happen, which I think really needs to happen, is At Home in Darien, and in many cases even the Aging Commission, I think has been viewed, there's a demographics obviously associated with it, but in particular on the list of services, we tend to think, well, that's somebody that's isolated and everything. I've had at least three, I also play bridge, and I've had three different people at Weyburn Country Club that I play bridge with say, you guys do some kind of service thing. Told them, they've contacted Chris, and it's amazing. They're just through them talking and everything, it's expanding beyond, it's not just, for people who are shut in or people, it's for anybody that is a member of At Home in Darien. And the real nice thing about it is, we have had, and I know you've gotten very good feedback from the people using it, very good feedback, and how competent the people are. They show up, and it may be they actually feel more responsibility than they might otherwise because they know it's associated with it. So that's something that Chris has just done a wonderful job in expanding, and we need to communicate that. I mean, it's very important for people in the town to understand there's this service that's available, and it's available to anybody that's a member of AHID.
Build on that real quickly. So you're right, you get people that we trust and that go in there, but there are other things that go into that. There was somebody that had been referred to us, we vetted them, we gave their name, we had a couple really good responses and feedback, but increasingly this vendor, or this person, started trying to get people to Venmo them money ahead of time. Well, for seniors, many of them weren't comfortable doing that. So we ultimately had a conversation and we stopped using that provider because we didn't think it was in the best interest of the seniors. So I think Jim is exactly right. You know, that's a program that's very quiet but very impactful, and we need to promote that more.
Very cool. Awesome. Other questions for Chris? Hearing none, thanks so much. As the newest member, I assume, unless somebody else has had a 60th birthday since the 14th. I very much appreciate what you guys are doing. It's awesome. Great. Old business. Peter, what you got?
Well, lots of things to report on the legislative front, but let me just get a couple things out of the way before that. Tax aid continues, and it's never been busier. I mean, every single slot is full. I'll give you an example. At the Darien Library, as of the week ending March the 4th, March the 2nd, we had 17 sessions, and they have filed 680 tax returns as of March. And I worked there on Monday, and every single slot was filled. Every single slot was filled. They can't take any walk-ins now because just how many people have registered. So that really is a service that's really continuing. And again, I do it at the Weed Library on Saturdays for AARP. Same thing. I mean, to go over to the library at 9:30 on a Saturday morning and see people lined up at the porch to get in at 10 o'clock. So again, a very vital service and very much utilized. Turning to legislative, fascinating, I think. I still sit on the Long-Term Care Advisory Council of the CWCESCO as an intern. And so I monitor their meetings, and they had a meeting last week. And what really amazed me was the optimism. It was the first time at one of these meetings where there was so much optimism about what is starting to happen at the legislature. And two of the folks that serve on the representative representative state, Jane Garibay, who is representing Windsor, and Mary Fortier, who represents Bristol, we're talking about the energy, and they were talking about the importance of people paying attention to this and how much more focus it's getting this year. And so there's starting to be some real energy surrounding aging, and that's terribly important as we play catch-up, when I say catch-up, I'll switch over to SWACA. Marie Allen, who is a leader at SWACA, you know, her Carthage Must Be Destroyed speeches, that Medicaid floor in the state of Connecticut is $1,600. $1,600. That floor was set in 1970. 1970. Other states, Maine has a $10,000 floor. And starting to get where at least legislators are starting to pay attention to it, and hopefully they won't just put it on a shelf and not deal with it. You've all got what Beth, I guess, passed on to you, which is the bills, the legislative bills, and so many of them are important, and so many of them are now in progress. And again, you know, you can testify for these bills online now, so you don't have to do what I had to do for years, to ride up to Hartford to testify. You can actually do it online. But so many important things coming up and so many important issues. Presumptive eligibility is finally seeing the light of day, and presumptive eligibility, in my simplistic, non-political explanation of it, is that if somebody is in some type of a crisis, they don't have to wait for certain things to happen to get through the whole system and the verification, and that the organization that has this person in charge can say it is presumptive eligible, so that when the time comes, we can prove it. Again, Ally,
Yeah,
what you're
curious.
talking about, waiting out
Oh.
weeks and weeks
Yep.
to get to speak to someone. So really, really important. Let me see if I can flag another thing out. Yeah, Joe, Jim mentioned I had an interview, I did a coffee interview actually with Senator Duff and AARP, and it's going to be on YouTube, I guess, starting tomorrow. We talked to Senator Duff, and he said one of his great interests is drug affordability. And again, what Connecticut is trying to do with drug affordability is end run the barriers that exist in Congress today. And some states like Florida are finally doing it, breaking through where they, as a collective body, can get better pricing for drugs. The other one is Senate Bill number 3, which wasn't on the list, and that has to do with internet services. And again, the dimension there is probably more the privacy dimensions of the data that these organizations can collect and what they can do with it and what we might be able to do to restrict it. So, again, I'm going to stop because I could go on for hours and hours, and our secretary's going to tear her hair out, and I have not put anything up. But all I can say is, if you're interested in supporting seniors and elder care issues, it's a really couple of critical months between now and the middle of May when the session ends. So get involved, talk to your congresspeople, talk to your any of your legislators about your concerns, and make sure we push ahead.
Peter, and you alluded back to what Ally was talking about with if your budget in a critical area doesn't allow you to have people on overtime, and your mission is to respond quickly. To me, it's part of this whole idea of you can pass legislation, but if we're not prepared, if we can't figure out how the budgetary issues work out, it doesn't matter that we've passed the legislation. It matters in the sense of at least we have attention. But Joe, I think at some time we need to have a dialogue, and I don't know who should be involved, but how are the funding mechanisms for these different types of programs? And how do we ensure that, or how do we at least be able to vet and understand there is going to be funding available for this? And here's where it is in the budget, because we all listen to the budget process, whether it's the town, whether it's the state, or anything. But understanding what's in that budget and things that we're interested in, because Peter does a great job. We know what the legislation is. The issue I have is post-legislation. What's the process, and how do we then follow up with exactly what he's doing, but to ensure that we get the appropriate funding for it. Otherwise, it's just paperwork. And it's something I think we really need to be engaged in.
So the question would be, who in the state, I don't think that's a town issue, I think that's a state issue. The question is who, and I'm going to my state legislative person, Peter, who would we be able to get to talk to that issue, who would be knowledgeable and quite frankly willing to come?
That question baffles me, and Jim, you're absolutely right. I know, and Ally knows there are state agencies that have mandated they don't talk to people on a Friday because they're so busy during the week.
Yeah, Wednesdays, I don't know if it still is a thing,
Wednesdays,
but
right.
they're closed to the public, DSS, because they have to catch up on paperwork.
Weekly sabbatical.
Yeah, that's why they're
I
there,
wonder-
but they can't answer the phone.
Yeah, they don't deal with
So much
clients.
paperwork.
I don't know.
What if, as we're saying all this, what if, so since, I was considering writing a letter to probably the commissioner of DSS, what if I constructed a letter and it came, or however you want to do this, from the Commission on Aging?
Yeah.
And we all, whoever's interested could sign it.
That's great, that doesn't address Jim's issue.
No, it doesn't, but I'm just thinking while you're talking about all this.
It's the same
Yeah.
idea, Joe. How do we, what's the methodology or process for us to be able to do follow-up. Because, you know, you cross it off the list, boy, we got that done, and then you find out what Ally's experience is. So, and it's just, I think we need to be an absolute active advocate.
Advocacy, I'm with.
Right.
Okay, so what I would suggest is when Ally or Beth or anybody else comes across these issues, they bring them to our attention and we act as advocates. Is to Peter's point, I'm not sure anybody has the background or knowledge, for example, as to why is DSS so underfunded that they don't have enough people where they have to close on Wednesdays, or at least they're open, but they're not answering their phones, right? That seems like the 17-headed monster of trying to figure out how you're gonna address that. But to Ally's point, if I get a motion in a second, I'm glad to work with Ally on behalf of the Commission on Aging to come up with a letter to DSS as commissioner and say, hey, this is not appropriate. You guys have gotta do stuff here. When someone is waiting 2 weeks.
It should be like 24 to 48 hours ideally, I mean.
Right, in an emergency situation, and you guys aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to that effect? Thank you, Jim, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, so we'll get that letter out this month. Certainly, whenever Ally's ready, I'll be glad to work with you on that, and on behalf of the commission to try to address at least, hey, guys, if nothing else, I understand you've got to prioritize, but a senior who is in desperate need should be number one, because there's a harm issue here.
Yeah.
And so of all else, do no harm, and you guys are doing harm by not responding.
It's kind of neglectful. And I think if we don't say something, then it's just gonna, they get away with, not get away with it, but you know, like we have to actually at least say something, so it's on record, right?
Okay, I saw Jim had a hand up.
Oh,
I'm just a guest here, but I was gonna suggest you CC that to the state legislators and state senators that, you know, represent Darien.
Sure.
Because they're the ones that control the purse strings.
And one other issue that I'm wondering is whether the commission should be taking an active position, because the issue now on potting
Yeah.
and the housing, and there was an article yesterday, and basically it said, well, apparently there's some people in town who are concerned about this concept. And my question is, should we as a commission have a position?
Because you beat me to that. That is our topic for April. Right, all right, so April discuss, so I want everybody to do their research, okay? Relating to the town's idea, remember the state had an idea about this, which the town did not go along with. Okay, the town wanted to come up with their own idea, okay? So I would suggest that we discuss this at the April meeting, see if we can come to a consensus. If we can, then we need to go to the people who are, quite frankly, on the pro side of this and figure out how we can advocate on their behalf. Fair enough?
Yep.
This worked out great because Tony and I decided it would be much better for us to bring our thing we were gonna do here at the commission to the Mather Center and do it a week earlier. So on April 10th, we'll be there at the Mather Center on the question of the Commission on Aging as well as tax deferral and abatement. And then on April 17th, as a commission, we can discuss what I think you referenced, Jim, as ADUs, okay, which is the first time I've heard that. I know what it means, but I've never heard it as an acronym like MASH. So that's great. So we'll do that in April on, basically looking at this question of how do we feel as a commission and can we get a consensus on the Darien plan.
Joe, I'll send you a link to the public hearing that P&Z held last week
Yeah.
about accessory dwelling units.
Yeah.
Jeremy Ginsburg, the town's land use brainiac, did a good presentation explaining what ADUs are as well too.
Okay.
And then there were a lot of these comments, as you were mentioning, Jim, from members of the public who he thought perhaps were misinformed, but there are obviously opinions out there as well
Right.
too.
Okay.
But people should, back to your list here, you should go back and watch that, the P&Z, because it helps you understand the issues and the language. You know, it's like, because you really need to know it, because they're parsing stuff now that it just, we really need to look at.
Well, we couldn't bring these two topics together any better than having Jim here for TV 79, sending me a link to a meeting, which I then send to you guys, which we then discuss in April. So it's awesome, nice merger of those two things. So I will send the link that Jim sends me out to you guys. I think that is definitely the starting point with Jeremy Ginsburg's presentation for our discussion in April. Okay? Other old business? Yes, sir.
Joe, I have three other things I
Go
want to
for it.
quickly mention. One of the things is that the role of the municipal agents in the state of Connecticut is going to be re-examined. You know, every state, every one of 169 towns is supposed to have municipal agents. I guess you're our municipal agent, aren't you? And I guess not very much work has been done really in looking at duties and responsibilities and assistance. So I understand that's going to be started. Two other quick things, new things, kind of interesting. We saw a clip on medically tailored groceries. Instacart and HHS and SNAP are putting together a pilot program where they are beginning to deliver groceries to folks that are medically challenged and essentially working on providing them with groceries more specific to their needs. It's
HHS and
a
who?
really big idea, Instacart. It's a really, and the CEO of Instacart has said that she's taken this on as a challenge, so that's down the road.
Amazing.
The other thing that I heard at the SWACA meeting was that Greenwich has gotten a $199,000 18-month grant to do Compassionate Companions. And this is, I believe, with a not-for-profit organization. And what this is essentially is where they will work with folks providing more tailored medical traveling connections, and they will be using handicapped-equipped Ubers. Again, I mentioned this to you, Chris, last week, I think, to take a look at, but again, kind of interesting and pretty large grant, and from a not-for-profit, the way I understand it.
Well, the town of Greenwich their human services department has a home care agency, so I'm guessing it's probably them.
Okay.
You know, the town, they're seeing the town at the grant.
So, down the road.
Yeah. Other old business? New business? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn the March meeting of the Commission on Aging? Thank you. Second? All in favor? Aye. See you guys in April. Thanks again, Jim, for coming. Really appreciate it.
Mhm.